Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here this evening, afternoon, wherever you may be within the world. Myself, I'm Hunter Tane, joined today by Beza. And Beza, we got ourselves a heck of a match here today. Got ourselves one between Void and Missarna Bastun. And you know what? I'm just happy to have some EU competition, to see a lot going down in this situation. We're in an interesting world of Overwatch right now, and I'm just frankly excited for this matchup today.
Yeah, of course. I mean, both teams going 1-0 into this match, so both
Mm-hmm.
pretty much on equal footing from what we're seeing so far in this matchup. So looking forward to it. A lot of EU extravaganza, one could say.
Yeah, definitely is the case. But it is pretty early on in the season when it comes to everything going on, as we can kind of take a little quick look at the standings of how things have kind of gone within this first week with some of the teams that have already done their second matchups at this point. Of course, here in the Challenger division, we already have a couple of 2-0 teams, a few teams already down in that 0-2 range. But you said it yourself, both these teams ended up taking that 1-0 at the beginning to get things started away. So one of them is going to have to take their first loss here. But with a few weeks more of competition, one loss doesn't necessarily hurt them, but it's not a situation where you want to have to take a loss this early on into the season if you don't have to.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're kind of creating a little bit of a split between the grouping the more games we go on. Some
Mhm.
teams might just walk away with a really strong lead, but early on in the season, you have both a mix of teams that start to get a really strong start, but then also teams who start off on the wrong foot and might need to develop a little bit throughout the season and as it goes on. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what we're going to be able to talk about. Of course, that rookie division, though, is still going on. Of course, Findux, the only undefeated team at the moment, but there's still a lot of other teams that have to play their second matchup, so we're going to see whether or not there's going to be any other 2-0 teams. But honestly, when you have that many teams kind of going at it, a lot of chaos can happen. You can never truly know. Sometimes you get a mismatch those first to 1 or 2 games you have, and some teams bounce back. Some teams start strong and fall off. It's just the nature of the game.
Yeah, it's just the way the coin flips, as some say, and I don't think anyone's ever said that before, but I'm the one saying it now. So we'll see which way the coin flips quite literally as well, with some teams getting double heads and some teams looking to get some heads later on, because they're flipping on the wrong side. Comp matchup and strength as well matter a lot in this game as well. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what teams, I guess, shape out into a more adaptable team.
Yeah, 100%. As we're gonna get this first map figured out here, ladies and gentlemen. But I think it's a pretty good idea to look at the rosters that we have here today for the two teams here before us. So why don't we go ahead and take a nice little look at Void to get things going here, Bez. We got Xander Jordan over on DPS, Spike on the tank, and then Miloot and Preda over on support. And already a team that has known to be able to take a victory already. You have to go in having a bit of confidence in this lineup with what they've already been shown to be capable of.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing as well from their favorite and most played heroes as well that they seem to be a very fast team. They've got the Hazard
Mhm.
as a preferred and also most played. They've got the Genji, the Lucio as well, a lot of fast heroes. So maybe we'll see a bit of a tempo change. We'll have to see if the Missarna can match that.
Yeah, excited to see if that's going to be the case. But of course, you brought up Missarna Bastun, and we're going to take a look at their squad to get things going. You have Kaloma and Ego More over on the DPS, Sane on tank, and then Neon and Battle Gnome on support. And again, this is clearly with what we at least see here on the outset of favorite heroes that they like to play fast as well. So this could be kind of be a little bit of a meeting of the minds when it comes to a lot of these quick compositions, and that's kind of what we see, at least on some of these more dive based maps where teams will try to play quick, because in those situations, you want to be able to first to fight, be the first one to engage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, on their favorite heroes, they've got these really fast-paced picks, but on the most played heroes, I'm seeing Reinhardt and May, so I wonder how that's going to shape out, because I haven't seen a
Ooh,
Reinhardt May match in a while, so
no.
definitely looking forward to that one. Definitely looking forward to see how that's going to work out.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of maybe played. Oddly enough, on a map like Circuit Royale, it
Mm.
happens a lot. They'll kind of just try to wall off the Sigma. Sigma can't really defend themselves through all the primary fire. But we'll see if that ends up being the case, if we can get to a situation like that. One thing we got to focus on is what this first map is going to be and what the bans are going to be along with it. But the one thing we can determine is where we're headed first and foremost. That is going to be Oasis to get things started. And Beza, I like Oasis specifically because it is one of those control maps where all the sub points play a little bit differently. Like City Center is really good for dive, University is really
Mhm.
good for that brawl. So this should be a map where we should be a fair amount of flexibility to get us started.
Yeah, and I mean, Hazard is good just as Reinhardt's good on some submaps. So as you've mentioned, a lot of variety. There's also a lot of bit of what you could say as a bait positions as well. There's quite a lot of places on some of those maps that are kind of avoided. So we'll see how those teams like work around those. For example, on City Center, you've got the high ground that not a lot of teams quite like to play around, but some teams like to play around a bit too much. So we'll have to see how that goes, of course.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it ends up going in the situation right here. But for the time being, we're gonna be figuring out the bans in the situation. But Beza, in this situation where you're in that first map, the bans usually end up being relatively safe in situations like this. You don't want to, get rid of something as a throw down the line that perhaps, map 3, map 4, you're gonna want it a lot more because there are definitely some characters that are going to work on different maps here because you might want to not deal with a Ramatra or an Orisa on University, but there's no guarantee you even get to University.
Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing Diva and Ana, and I'd argue that's actually quite some
Mm.
strong bans. I think Diva are definitely a safe ban for Oasis, but Ana is definitely a standout for me here.
Yeah, it definitely is. The Ana's interesting because it does stop a few different compositions. This kind of does leave an area where maybe you go towards the line of like we saw earlier with the Kiryu and the Lysio, maybe go back down to the Juno Brig route that was popular for quite a long time and still is to some extent. The Diva being gone though, I don't think ends up changing a lot. I think that opens up the door for things like Hazard, like Winston on these more dive-based maps. I don't think it should make the biggest difference in the world, but if that was the first ban, that also could imply that it was more of a protection of, hey, we want to play Hazard or we want to play Winston and we want to be able to protect it and also just not have to deal with a potential diva as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely seems like maybe a little bit of scouting bans as well, in the sense of
Yeah.
looking to see what the other team plays, looking to see what they're strong at, and maybe if they get on a good foot with that Diva ban, then they've got a good idea on what they're looking into for the next few matches.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what ends up happening. Of course, we're going to get this map started momentarily. Make sure everybody's going to be ready to go for this first map here on Oasis. But either way, Beza, we talked a little bit about what we have kind of seen lately in terms of most played characters, but you brought that Reinhardt, the Reinhardt ace that ends up being pretty rare nowadays. It comes out on occasion, but usually in Brawl, the main two we end up seeing is that Orisa and that Ramatra, who have kind of just taken over the course of the last couple of months.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it though, with the perks as well, it's interesting because it kind of changes the Mei and Ramatra matchup a little bit. Because of
Mhm.
course, the Mei freeze perk has been almost dominating against the Ramatra. It's really difficult to deal with that as a Ramatra when you're blocking and you're trying to live and you just get frozen. So I feel like Reinhardt's biggest counter being Ramatra kind of get nullified a little bit by that Mei pick. So maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll have to see some Orisa possibly. Is my first guess at least. But you never know. It could change into something crazy.
Yeah, certainly could. Definitely during these series, a lot of players will kind of develop as thing goes along. You take notice very quickly of something you don't want to have to deal with, and you have to make the decision whether to ban it out immediately and have to deal with it later down the line, or kind of use the map to try to find a solution. Because in that situation, I think it's perhaps more worth it to kind of take that next map and think like, okay, can we find a way to deal with this? Because if you can figure it out, if a Genji's just harassing you and you figure out the solution, you don't necessarily have to worry about banning the Genji out because hey, we found the solution. We don't need to get rid of them. We don't need them to go to something else that might potentially give us a whole different issue.
Yeah, of course. So these definitely are going to be a bit of a decider match, as you've been saying. It's going to arguably shift the balance of who's looking to start off on the strong foot here. It's definitely going to be a bit of a message sender match, at least from how what I've seen with a lot of these first playoff matches.
Yep, 100%. But like we said, just make sure everybody's ready to go. I want to make sure everything is correct so we can have no issues going into this first map. But Bessa, coming up with more topics on this spot here. We talked a lot about the heroes that we are likely going to see that have had a lot of playtime. But to be fair, in the world of Overwatch we have right now, there's not a whole lot of characters that can't be implemented in some way. Like back before we had the ban perk system, it felt like when you reached the meta, it was like, hey, these are like the pool of like 8 or 9 characters you can play. If you play something outside of that, you're basically throwing. But we live in a world where in a single match, we might end up seeing like 15 to 20 different heroes just because that's the way the game operates nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, the bans definitely have shaken up a lot of things when it comes to meta because you can't be so complacent on the one comp you play anymore. Because once you
Mhm.
get complacent and you get comfortable on that comp, you just get a ban thrown your way, and then you're not really able to adapt again from there onwards. So, the bans, obviously, I'd say has been probably the biggest shakeup for any type of competitive matches in Overwatch, even in your ranked games as well. So, I definitely like the change up, and yeah, I mean, even without the bans, you had like NIG Shock, for example, before the bans playing out like on a Junker Queen comp. So bans have been very entertaining, but at the same time, we've still seen the metas always fluctuating.
Yep, it always is, and that's why I love the way the quote unquote meta is right now. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have everything set and ready to go for our first map of Oasis. Definitely need to be a tone setter for both these squads right here. This is one of those maps where a lot of fast-paced action is likely going to come to fruition. It's a scenario where I'm hoping we get to see something kind of fancy here, but at least from the side of Void, it looks like it's going to be relatively, I don't know if I want to say standard is necessarily the word here, Beza, but TP out, going over something like the Soda to the Tracer more than likely. So I like what they're showing.
Yeah, and definitely looking forward to seeing how the Mauga versus Orisa matchup goes. Of course, Mauga a little bit faster than Orisa, but a little bit more sustainable. So we'll have to see how this goes. Looking to stay the high ground here now, though.
Yeah, 100%. Zane already a bit of a rough scenario, getting super low, trying to spin them away. Cleanse comes up online to be able to keep him up for a little while longer, but they're still in a really awkward scenario. Eventually has to get out entirely, as Void is having a lot of trouble holding onto this high ground. They're getting pestered away. Mylu ends up going down first and foremost, but the trades are starting to go back and forth on every side as Zane managed to make their way back into the fight, trying to burn away. It looks like it's going to be successfully done as Spike not going to get out alive, and Sin more than likely just got to die on this point as, yeah, that's a
Not how I
perfect
thought that
recur.
was gonna go. That definitely not how I thought that was gonna go. But you know, we can see the difference already so far with the Mauga just looking to get that highly damage, and a big slam's gonna change this fight really quickly. They've got to be very careful about their rotations here for Void.
Yeah, exactly. So, in this situation now, if you're Void, you got to figure out how you want to move around, because you could just force, like I said, right now, you see the force onto the point. Spike, though, has already used that gold form early on, so now Zane is just going to go
Looking onto the
dive
backline.
that backline, and unfortunately is in a bit of a weird spot, because now Battle Gnome has to go all the way in to try and help them out. They end up going down, and now the trades come once again, but still, MIB is the one clearing house. Ego is specifically helping clear houses. They're not even going to get a flip here.
Yeah, I mean, Ego's telling Void to stay where they are right now. Every time that they've looked to go in, Ego's just gone right on their backline and gotten those trades when it matters right now. It's looking like a very strong venture pick here for Missarna over here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful pick. I love the way they're going about this to get things started, but they still have a couple of fights if you are Void to make this happen. The problem is you haven't really built up to a whole lot of vaults. You're going to, have that Deadeye. You have Terror Surge right around the corner, but that Blade is kind of in the realm where it might not even end up coming out for that final fight. So if you're a Missarna Bastun right now, you are more than happy to go in, try to take this dive, but Xander actually finds the... Yeah, it's a beautiful first pick, and Void should have this one cleared away, but Ego has been able to kind of clear out these fights before, could do it again, but for the time being, Void has found that initial flip.
Ego's not happy for that, though. Ego wants more right now, I feel. Looking to still try and get picks. They're looking for the Burrow as well. Oh, straight out on the Lucio. They've gotten 3 this fight. They're looking for a 4th even. Oh, so just about missed it. But they're back for the cleanup. Ego has just gotten cleaned up 4.
Yeah, like I said, Ego is just kind of a unit right now, and now we're down the final fight territory. But the bright side for Void is they used no ultimates for that fight, and I believe it was just the pulse bomb they ended up using too. So this is just gonna be an ult dump for both sides, no matter what.
Yeah, gotta be careful not to overcommit though, because if this high noon goes out wrong, Zen might just be looking to pin on it and cancel it. So they've got to be very careful with these ults. Even and as I say that, well, against the Lucio.
Yeah, and that means there's no beat in the situation. Spike's gonna have to use his Terror Surge probably to just live momentarily. Gonna pulls them in with the Terror Surge to get the Blade off, as Sin's gonna find a second slash with that. You gotta move in. Zane throws down the cage. I'm not sure what quite happened in that scenario, but at the very least, Myloot's back. It's just them and Sin that have to try to pull it back right here. They gotta be able to find Ego, who's just gonna hide underground, take the sweet time, let Zane come back into the fight, and at this point, Beza, this is just a cleanup squad coming through.
I mean, when Ego's still alive in the fight, you gotta be scared it's gonna end. So, you gotta be careful. And then now comes the Kiriko Kitsune as well, and this retouch is going to be difficult. Trying to stall it out from Xander, and it's just not going to be enough. Ah,
Yeah,
that was close
it's
though.
yeah, it's a good stall there, but I mean, I might be just has this ability to keep pace real quick. Let's have a quick pause, get things taken care of. Um, but no, that is just the pace they're able to carry. And I think that first fight is the best example of what they're able to do. They go in, uh, Zane gets a ton of pressure, and eventually they're forced out. But instead of like trying to force their way in and make something happen, they immediately get out, take a full reset, and then re-engage at I would say the perfect time to catch Void off guard, and then they just get collapsed into on that corner.
Yeah, and I mean, at the same time, though, we're seeing they're burning a lot of resources into that Mauga. They're getting a lot of like
Mm.
damage out early, but Eco's just getting and slipping in with the little opportunity of the equal trades for the Orisa spin, the Orisa spear, like Genji dash, etc. They're using a lot of resources to force this Mauga, and Eco's just finding a good opportunity right now during these fights to get the trades out right when you need it, and it's mattered a lot. It's made a lot of fight deciders.
Yeah, no, it 100% has, and it's a scenario where while you're kind of feeding into the Malga, and you might be getting some ult charge off of that, your supports are also generating a ton of charge as well, because you're able to just keep healing away at the Malga, who's just not going to die, and that's the reason why some of those Swirl ultimates were some of the first ultimates to kind of be implemented as well. So in the situation right here, if you're Void, I think you already need to figure out some level of pivot right here. I think it makes a lot of sense why there's not an Ana now in the situation right here, because that would be the Malga's worst enemy right here. So it ends up being it ends up being a very competent band, works out very well. So the question is, even if it does work here, how long could you potentially get away with a composition like that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see because double flex comps have generally been a little bit of a off meta pick, even in the
Mhm.
strongest of double flex metas, because generally use a lot of that frontline pressure when you don't have a hit scan, like the cast, like the Sojourn. So while we're seeing that Ego's getting a lot of picks where the trades are coming out, they're not getting a lot of frontline damage. Like Spike's not been taking that much damage if you really consider it. When they've got a Mauga, they've got a Venture and a Tracer, a lot of their engages are going right past the Orisa, so they've really got to try and figure out how to make that work in Void's favor, as opposed to in Bizarre's favor, of course.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. And I'm curious to see which way it goes, because it's a whole different story whether we go to City Center or whether we go over to University. Because University, it just plays directly back into the Malga comp, and I don't think anything changes. But if it is City Center, I think that changes the story a little bit, because they could still force it and make it happen. But if Void want to play something completely different where they can try to simply bypass the Malga entirely, I think they could get away with that. But again, we talked about it with Control. Sometimes it's a luck of the draw, and sometimes you don't play something like that University, a map where it's like, hey, we have a brawl comp, but we love to play here. We just can't really play out on the other two sub points well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because yeah, a lot of comp changes are gonna be in effect here. Maybe on City Center, especially, even sorry, City Center being like the biggest difference, I'd say, from the Malga comp. But again, we saw a lot of the time though the support traits came out quite often in favor of
Mhm.
Void. So maybe they might be catering a little bit more into those trades, a little bit more into trying to get to that backline. And we will have to see how it works because I believe City Center is probably the map to do it, to go for those backline trades, to skip the Mauga even, if you want
Mhm.
to put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. There are some good points to do it when you look at something like University. Sometimes you see teams fight for that initial high ground up on that top left or top right side, depending which side you're on. Uh, but in that scenario right there, the Mauga would be pretty good at clearing away that area. But if you have something like that Orisa, like that Lucio, you're basically able to kind of hold like a pincer right on that staircase. Because if I'm the Mauga, I'm not walking anywhere near that staircase. If I think there's an Orisa or a Lucio that can just push me off the edge, and instead I have to commit my cooldowns just to get in, I don't know how well that's going to work out in their favor. So in the situation, if I'm Void, I am fighting tooth and nail to get to that high ground as fast as I can. And even if they don't end up taking it, you still have the high ground. You're able to simply poke away. You just have to figure out how you want to engage after that fact. Because the moment they drop, the moment they try to go somewhere, that Malga is just going to try to come crashing down on them. Because that's what you want to do. You want to stop what is trying to do before it even starts. And I think the Malga is great at doing something like that.
Yeah, of course. And with university, if you lose that high ground control as well, you can kind of get pinch pushed into a little box as
Mm.
well. So we're going to see a lot of fierce fighting, I feel like, for this high ground. And And as you said, that Orisa, it's scary near those ledges with that spin. And also on City Center as well. They could just walk up into that high ground and just push them off and just tell them, get off my high ground, you know? So we'll have to see definitely how that Orisa matchup changes a little bit with these environmental like ledges and the risk of just being pushed off the map and losing a fight straight away.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen fights where they would come out the gate, a team would run a Pharah, and they would literally play it with the implication of just trying to boop somebody off. And guess what? Last time I saw it, it worked, and that first fight was just non-existent. But either way, it doesn't seem like that much is changing in this scenario. I'm sorry, Bastion is still hoping to just run away with the Mauga comp, and Spike is more than content to sit on the Orisa, but I wonder if Sin is going to swap up at all, because the Genji, it existed, but it wasn't getting a whole lot done, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, you can even say it was taking a bit of resources away from their hit scan, who got a couple trades when they got what they needed. But here we see the contest for the high ground straight away. And straight off the map! Just as predicted, like a fortune teller.
500 IQ caster here, ladies and gentlemen, as without the Amalga, it's just going to be really tough to pull it back. But you see, you kind of have Ego playing on the high ground with Neon right there, just trying to hang around, give themselves a good time. But you can kind of see right now, Spike being baited in a little bit, Ego trying to survive as Zane's made their way back into the fight, but is simply going to back out as Void she's at the point and take a good first fight win here on University.
Yeah, and I mean, we see Sin stayed on the Symmetra this time, actually, instead of hopping onto anything. So Symmetra are very good at those TP moves. So maybe they're looking to bake them with the high ground and just TP right onto them. Or maybe they're looking to just get that beam charge and get a lot of frontline pressure.
Yeah, I can see it going either way, quite honestly. But into this next fight, Ultimate's not really an issue quite yet, but honestly it could quickly, as Xander's already sitting at 94%, but is being harassed currently in the corners, having forced to back out right there. Is Sane hoping to find something, but it's actually Ego who goes and finds not only one, but two. They get taken out, but the damage is already done, and Cloma's back over, pushing it with the Freya. As, man, you can't look away for more than 2 seconds from Ego.
No, he's like a little like mosquito in the back. If you look away, you're gonna get a billion little stings. You know, it's just like you got to be careful. But this mosquito bites, that's for sure. So you know, we're definitely gonna have to see how they're gonna adapt to the venture, because right now they seem to be struggling a little bit. But the Freya pick as well, definitely an interesting pick from the, I believe, Tracer.
Yeah. Whoa. Oh, the
beat comes out.
Yeah, that's an initiation beat, and that's rare to see in a situation like that. And now Consider Rush going to be used on both sides as well. But Ego again manages to find Xander. And Void just can't do anything in this scenario. They take the gamble with double swirls, and unfortunately, it does not pay off at all.
Ego again, just like looking to stagger on Spike here as well, and that was a good stagger. Nice, and made him miss the wave respawn even, and that's going to be a big impact for Void. Going to be a bit late to this fight as well, but 4 ults for Missarna right now. It's going to be difficult to walk into that if you're Void, especially with the Genji swap. They don't have Simwall either now.
Yeah, they don't. This is going to be a little awkward in this scenario, because you got to wonder how much you want to implement right now. As Zane is going to cage right now, you've also thrown in the bolo shot, but now everyone in here is just a sitting duck. As Sin and Spike say, yeah, you know what, bud, we're not feeding you all charge. We're just going to take the reset here, as we're basically going to this fight with just the 2-2 ult trade.
I mean, that's not too bad for Void right now. It was a quick fight. It was a clean fight. But now the question is, are they going to be able to use their ults, that high noon, that Orisa pull, to get enough value here to even cap the point? Because they're looking to last fight territory here, looking to go left side again. I think Zane not going to try and pin him this time. Slight lesson from the ult usage there, but yeah, high ground taken for Void.
Yeah, Deadeye is used again a little prematurely right here. No one's really trying to press the point either. Eventually, you're going to see Sin get on there over on the Genji now, and Sane is just going to go in, try to find something, is forcing the way immediately, and Ego's manages to get rid of one, is forcing everybody into an awkward area. Spike has to pull everybody together for a Terror Surge. It's just going to force Zane to get out of there, as Kaloma's gotten rid of 2, and everyone is just collapsing in on Void. The flip did come through, but it's not going to mean diddly squat. Sorry, Bastun is going to take away this first point. Yeah, Ego is been a machine this entire first map.
Ego is on a tear up, and they get another one right on the last second there. That's just almost poetic at this point for how this match has gone. Is just Ego just tearing it up.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of crazy. And I've seen that on occasions with that Venture, because Venture, like some other characters, it's not something you run into super often. And that's why, in the situation of Overwatch that we have, knowing characters like that Venture is convenient, because teams don't necessarily always know how to deal with it because it's a pressure that you can't just turn and kill it very easily. It's like a ball in those scenarios where you can turn on the ball doesn't mean he's gonna die. The moment you pressure that venture, they just go underground, they burrow, and they get out of there. And there's not a thing you can do about it in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, Venture's still strong. Not something you consider off meta, but it's just about enough to throw people off, because they're not
Yeah.
quite used to that. And as you said, very good pocket pick, and it's working out really well for Eco. I do have to ask though, I have your thoughts about the Orisa shield perks. I've been seeing it a lot lately, but I feel like it didn't really work out for Spike there.
Yeah, it really comes down to I think comfortability on that one, but at least when I'm going into a Malga, honestly, and when I want to go into most things, honestly, I want that spin because the shield is great and you can kind of bunker around that. But with what you're running for Void, that is something that you can run down people with. That's kind of what that comp is meant for in a lot of ways. So if you force the bunker, you're just living a scenario where you can have the Fray of the Malga just continue to poke away, burn the shield, and unfortunately, you're not going to find anything out of that. So I'm hoping future situations you keep the spin, you're able to engage with the better, take less damage, and it enables the fact that you are playing a comp that plays fast. So it's just going to make your style a lot easier to implement.
Yeah, and I mean, you see as well a lot of the time when Malgor was really strong, the Genji deflect mattered a lot on that front line. And I feel like it's
Mhm.
kind of a similar situation where you have no way to nullify that Malgor pressure. You have no way to nullify that constant healing that you would with spin. That you just kind of lose out a lot of value. Like 600 health shield just isn't going to be enough. I believe it's 600 or
Mhm.
800, but it's just not enough, especially with the Freya swap as well. It's just a lot of pressure. And Eco didn't even like budge against their shield. They completely ignored it. The Malga completely ignored it. And then when you don't have the spin, you just can't stop it, you know?
Mm. Yeah, and now this poses the question of what you want to do now if you are void, at least in terms of bans in this scenario, because I think the two biggest ones, obviously, coming out of that venture and that Malga. But this goes back to the point I made before we started the map. Do you try to go against it here in this second map and try to figure out a way to deal with it, or do you ban it just to put yourself in a better situation and kind of have to face the music a little later down the line? If I'm them, I'm thinking of potentially holding off on it, but I don't know, Beza. With it being King's Row, I mean, with the maps that are still remaining, this is probably one of the stronger maps for Venture by a mile.
Yeah, 100%. Like you've got like Havana and Rialto. It's not standards to see a Venture on those maps. A lot of long range. Honestly, Venture's kryptonite. So Kings Row definitely would be that map to ban Venture for me here. If I'm Void looking to deal with the biggest threat, which is the Venture, it would have to be Kings Row in this situation. So definitely a safe pick for Void here. We'll have to see how MIB respond to that, of course.
Yeah, I'm curious to see it. But yep, there it is, Venture. Voided by ban. But I'm sorry, Bastion is going to get rid of the Orisa right here. So Spike gonna have to swap out the tanks in the situation. And I love the Venture pick. Obviously, it's what we wanted. It's what we got. The Orisa one does get me a little interested here because the Orisa it can be good to counter the Amalga, of course, but unfortunately, Spike wasn't getting away with a whole lot on the Orisa during that situation. So I'm not sure if I would want to force the swap up in a situation like this where it felt like they got away with doing the Malga the Orisa pretty effectively on their side.
Yeah, I feel like personally it's a bit of an on the fence kind of ban where it's like the Orisa's
Mm,
not that much of a threat to them. Obviously, they're just skipping the Orisa. They're not even ignoring they're not even paying attention to the Orisa. So I feel like it's one of those bans where it's like we just want someone to ban for now and keep those stronger bans for later
mhm.
that they feel like we're posing more of a threat to them. But I mean, right now MIP don't seem to be too concerned with who they're banning because the way that they walked over Void on control there, they seem pretty confident.
Yeah, gonna see what the situation is going to be, but things are definitely gonna be changing up one way or another because we are gonna have a singular swap going into the situation. As we'll be able to see momentarily, Sin, who is our Genji slash Symmetra, geez, English first language. But we're gonna have a swap up here in the situation. Paco gonna be coming in, and curious what this is gonna bring. Obviously, it's gonna be a swap up of some kind here, but this could be someone to come in and play something, characters that are just traditionally more played. Things like that Tracer, which by the way, 6 damage per bullet now, fantastic. The Sojourn's still very strong. Freya still very strong. There's a lot of things you can run here. I think things that are gonna be more effective than uh, the Genji, which it can work. It 100% can, but we saw from that first map, I don't think it's gonna work into the comp that Missarna seems pretty dedicated to running.
Yeah, and I mean, a big pick here could possibly even be a Pharaoh. We've seen a lot of Pharaoh on this map,
True.
so The 6 damage trace are very strong, but they're far when you can't even reach it. It's untouchable. But we see the May instead.
I'm
An
loving it.
interesting pick.
I love it. I love it going into this right here. And I like the fact that Spike is gone over to the Ramach for now instead. I think that's going to work a lot better going into the Malga, because obviously having your Nemesis form, you're able to survive for a much longer period of time and absorb that. And that way, Zane is getting a lot less healing from their cooldowns as well. So they have the tools there. They just have to use them correctly.
Yeah, I mean, this first choke point with a Meh is very hard to break through. It's very punishing as well. Like, if this Maga pins in a bit too recklessly, he might get a pick from the wall alone, and the Ramach are very livable against their Maga. Looking to take Hotel here, though, so we're seeing Zane taking it slow for once against this Meh.
Yep, and you want to, and right now, already Spike forced out, but of course that block is where it comes into handy. They're able to sit there. Slam doesn't hit them effectively. Preda's just getting kind of pushed around, and eventually Neon is just going to help take care of them. And all of this name of the game right now is taking care of Spike, but unfortunately, I mean, Void's just getting pushed back. They're keeping members still alive, but at this point, retouch isn't even in the question.
No, that was a quick and clean fight from Missarna on the attack there, and then we had a swap immediately afterwards from Void. The Freya swap, the Brigitte swap, and the Malga swap. They seem to be wanting a match a little bit more.
Yeah, just a little bit more, as Spike matching is going to be really interesting, because it could work, obviously. But you're going up on the archway over here where things are going to be really important to come away with. The Ego gets put into a bit of a corner here, eventually gets burnt away. And at least for this first fight, Zane's going to try to get out with their life with a little bit of speed. They'll be able to. So for Void, now they have the archway, and they can hold here for a long time if they play it right.
Yeah, I mean, a big slam there. I think the Malga swap might have even caught them off guard. Malga getting the advantage of the May there to stop the retreat, of course, and then just getting almost a guaranteed slam on that corner. I feel like they just weren't ready for that, but now they're a little bit more aware, so we'll see how they change up a little bit of their playstyle.
Yeah, Venom is going to have this Orbital ready to go right here. You're going to let it go pretty much instantly. Freeze comes up online, hoping to find somebody. It's going to freeze up Same, but gets cleansed out of it, so now they're able to stay alive as Void is being forced to simply back out. You've got to try to keep Spike and everybody alive. Unfortunately, the double stomp as Paco gets eliminated in turn, and Void just needs a complete reset as Missarna needs to get that cart pushing.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing Zane just keeps on going, and he seems very comfortable on that Malga, so, you know, maybe the Venture ban wasn't really the problem. Maybe Zane getting a lot of value for his team here, and we're seeing it a lot here as well, with the surviving the Blizzard, getting a good kite out of that Blizzard, but they're looking to still keep aggressing here, trying to hold this forward choke for the point.
Yeah, exactly, and they have some really good tools to be able to push back in this scenario right here. Polo shot being used pretty quickly, thrown in, not finding a whole lot. Zane hoping to get everybody again. Orbital Ray is implemented, and Zane is just a sitting duck, and there's Bolo's thrown in. It gets everybody, but only Xander is the one being caught. As we see the fight back here, Mylute eventually going to pop this rally, and this should be the stabilization tool that is needed for Void to hold on to the scenario, eventually forcing everybody back. Still need to try to find a pick, but for Missarna, they keep everybody alive so they can re-engage really quick.
Oh, and they get a pick as well, but it gets traded out though, unfortunately. So maybe Paco lives. Paco doesn't live. They're going to keep going. They're just going to keep going.
Oh, that is worst case scenario. And now this second point is as good as capped as Xander's going to try to get away. Super low is eventually going to hopefully get carried, but won't. We'll get Ego, but it's not going to matter. Missarna will have the second point unlocked, and we'll have about 4.5 minutes going into this third point.
Yeah, they got really punished for that overextension there. Of course, the fairly equal ult exchange though, but Kaloma got a lot of final blows there, I feel, and they've got an 80% ult charge already.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit crazy in this scenario. Building up some really good ultimates. The fact that Battle Gnome has this, and Preda's not even close to that Orbital Ray, means if they want to go all out on this corner here, there's nothing that's going to stop them. And there it is right there. Polo shot online, eventually going to try to cage everybody away. Trades are going back and forth. Rough scenario for Battle Gnome, who just doesn't have the care to keep them going. But Ego, again, just has two, so now we're in a 3v3. Ego gets away with the third, getting the 3-piece, potentially hoping for the 4 and the 5 as Missarna is just collapsing in. And Zane gets the final blow, and they're going to get that cart rolling once again.
Hiko and Zane are looking unstoppable right now. This little duo, but they're being supported a lot by their team. With the counter cage from Spike just not quite getting the value we needed to get there against that team. And Kaloma gets another one onto Xander as well.
What?
Oh, the
No
cage
way.
in the spawn doors.
That
He's gonna get the carry. He might even
crazy.
get the Melka.
Malgus really low, and Lily goes back to
So he
the
wants to
Lily
keep going.
goes back into the spawner, and bro does not want to be stopped. Unfortunately, the game tells you you gotta stop right there. Pulse bomb thrown in. Doesn't really do anything, but the stomp down on display. Freeze is implemented. Cleanse is there, ready to go if they need to be able to keep them up. Egomorph, again, manages to get rid of another. Just gonna be an unstoppable machine, because why not? As Void needs to try to pull this back. Rally is available. They're gonna pop that up pretty effectively. Weird spot right there for Sane, but to be honest, they want to just go stop down on the brig. They do so at this point. Because unfortunately, it is just a stall game. Try to make something happen. Unfortunately, it is.
And the beam gets forced.
Yeah, I mean,
But the
literally,
carry gets matched.
they
I don't even know who
have
could win
to.
this at this point.
The thing is, the problem is that they should eventually fall over. Missarna does have every advantage here in the world to shut people down, to slam right down on the Preda. Spike is just holding down the card, but they can't leave, they can't pursue anything, so you're getting a ton more value if you're Zane. You eventually get killed, but eventually, there's already everything. Spike is just not dying, though.
Paco's gonna get 2 as well, almost replicating Yumo's success on the last fight, but he's gonna get the C9!
It's just they get forced off. They try to pursue. They try to get a tracer with their own pulse bomb, and it just does not happen.
Paco was just a second late on that retouch there after trying to get as much value as they possibly could, but that was a lot closer than I feel like Void wanted that to be, at least. Or they wanted it to just be a full win. The beam not quite getting the value, but wanted there either.
Yeah, that honestly, 226, ton of time to work with. It was a bit rough there near the end, but at the end of the day, it showed Void has a little fight back, but Missarna Bastun is just in a scenario where they're not being stopped. They will be hold off momentarily, but there hasn't been a key solution that has been found yet, and that's why this is where the scenario where you might see Void maybe try something a little bit different. I think Paco's starting out on the Widow. While we do see it, for the first few seconds on Kingstro a lot, you know what? You should just try things at this point.
I feel like it can't possibly hurt than another loss at this point. So, given everything a try, we might even see the Widow if it gets some good success to keep going. Because, I've seen quite a few people who get that momentum going. And once you've got it going, you don't want to end it, So sometimes the Widow pick starts out as a little bit of a cheeky beginning advantage. But sometimes people just feel themselves with their shots and they start just getting shots and they just don't want to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully Void starts a little cascading chain to recovery here. Because they seem to be in a bit of a back foot right now.
Yeah, 100%, but we're going to get things started away. Paco just going to try to get some body shots. Might end up making the quick stop, but yeah, you see them dropping, going over to potentially make the swap. Paco going over to the Genji in the scenario, which I don't hate. You match ego in the situation, you can make something happen. Coloma needs a little bit more pressure. You just got to create solutions. Got to try to make something happen. They're going to go mega aggressive here as Zane gets antied, and finally the Ana is out, and guess what? Zane instantly falls over and dies. That is the solution, ladies and gentlemen. Ana.
We found it. The instant reswap. Again, first point was an Ana pick for Void as well, even on the defense. So maybe this is why Missarna banned the Ana as well. They realized Void was a bit comfortable on the Ana. They didn't want to even mess with that. And now we're seeing the value of it into the Malga.
Yeah, I like it. I love what I'm seeing, and now you're in a scenario where you still have the carry. You're able to cleanse out things, like the nade, but the cleanse is out, and they immediately throw it onto Zane, and now they're going to pursue through. Paco does get caught, unfortunately, so while Zane is in a bit of a rough area, the team is just fully there. Spike is just going to have to try to live for as long as they possibly can, as Zane goes all the way in and somehow gets the assassination onto Preda, but with Ego down, that's honestly fine. You take a reset if you're Void, and you can potentially go into a 5v4.
Yeah, I mean, Zane was matching aggression with aggression there. He did not want Spike to be leaving, and he ended up catching Preda in the crossfire almost. The Ana, of course, we're also seeing the weaknesses of it. Very vulnerable to those engages, very, very weak. They gotta make sure that their positioning is almost perfect into a lot of these comps as well.
100% is, but Void just have a Bolo ready to go right here. Could be very effective on that backline, especially if you have that nade ready, or Paco can follow up. Might have to give their life to do so, but instead he can City Rush. When Yan is activated, Bullshot is thrown in as Nano ended up coming out onto Spike, so now Spike has to try to burn Zane or else it's all for nothing, and with that, Spike is going to aggress, needs to try to find at least one more. Cleanse though has come out, and Spike unfortunately gonna get taken out, and now, I mean, Void are fighting back really well, but they're not closing out these fights.
No, Eco again getting those two in the backline. They're just letting them go a bit too free, and they're not quite comfortable with this aggression, I feel, Void. They're a bit uncomfortable with Missarna just looking for every opportunity that they can get to go in and just get the advantage on the attack, you know?
Exactly, but getting to this next fight, you see the ultimate aggression right here in the end. Lily just gets solo ulted, essentially, just thrown into the walls, but they're still alive. Eventually deleted as Spike gonna go ahead and cancel that out as Bullshot thrown in onto two bodies. Xander getting deleted. And again, Void, they get a good start. They're in a 3v3 scenario where they have to try to close things out. Eventually going to be forcing Battle Gnome into a weird scenario, 2v2 activated. But guess what? Same story. Egomorph is alive. They're clearing the house as Spike is just going to keep fighting back as Zane might be forced to get out. But honestly, they shouldn't be able to. Right?
He wasn't, but Eco gets another pick onto Xander, just like a little cheeky little exit track there for Ego onto Void, and it's just going to slow their pace down again. We're seeing a lot of this aggression and constant go, but it's not getting punished. Void just aren't able to react in time. And it's just the same old story, as you were saying, with Ego getting some really slippery opportunities into the backline. Oh, a big nade, though. And another big engage from Spike.
Yeah, I like that. Use that as kind of an engagement right there, as we're going to see quite the amplification right here. Eagle wants to try to find something with the blade. Lots of low people as Paco actually got rid of one, got rid of two, is coming back in. Spike something cleared the house, and now it's just Battle Gnome and Ego. I know you've been doing good, but a 1v5 is not in the cards. His Void's going to have about 4 minutes going into this, getting, I mean, pretty close to what Missarna ended up doing on their initial attack.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, Paco seems to have something to say about Eco right now, being a little bit uncontested even. He's got a message to send, and it seems like he's just about sent it with the better blade advantage. And he gets another with Milut's finish, being missiles onto Ego.
Yeah, exactly. And now, Yan just going to have this Kasune Rush on the table, so definitely has a lot of defense to work with, but Spike needs to be careful using this cage fight coming off here. It's had a lot of implementation because they have been dedicated to get rid of 1 or 2 people the entire time, and you see immediately the moment this thing goes bad, they managed to find Preda. We saw the instant reaction from Spike to follow them directly back. Unfortunately, it just doesn't quite work out. Paco ends up going down. I mean, the single bright side is that Void didn't use anything, and Yan ended up investing that Kasune Rush.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good reaction initially to back up, and they almost managed to get it just about timed to be able to turn and punish on Zane, but I do hope that that wasn't a bit of a precautionary tale, even, if you might say, about the... Oh, and then we get the mashed engage again. Missarna just keeps going.
Oh, everyone's in there, but Battle Gnome has gotten rid of 2. We see the Pulse Bomb come out. It helps finish off Battle Gnome, but you have to be able to get rid of another if you want to pull this back. It's a 3v3. Spike going through with that Nano, but Kaloma is still clearing out the house. Preda gone. Zane sitting super low. Needs to be taken care of. Eventually will, but it might be too little too late as Spike is just way too low. Needs to be cared for. They're super low, but they're going to get the care they need so Void can re-engage.
Oh, honestly, I think Eco actually managed to get those 2 picks too early into the fight, and then Spike wasn't cleaned up, and so Void's going to be back a lot quicker than Missarna, despite being the one further from the spawn point, with the point being just about in the middle. But we're back into another neutral here, though, with ult advantage from Missarna, but Milu's going to go off first with the beam. Engage comes out. They actually don't go into them for once.
Yeah, Pulse Bomb comes out. Ego doesn't find anything right there. Battle Gnome's going to engage with that Orbit Array. Kind of helps keep them alive, and now with that there... Unfortunately, cage fight does come out, so Battle Gnome's just going to clear away 2. It's a bit of a house party as Void now under 2 minutes, and they have no ults to stand for. Neither side does anymore.
I mean, yeah, for once, Missarna actually respected the aggression of Void, and I feel like they're actually quite comfortable with this faster-paced game, because you saw where Void's kite didn't quite work out for them, Missarna perfectly got back and went right back in the second they had the advantage. So Missarna looking really confident on this comp right now.
Yeah, I'm loving the way they're looking, going for the backline once again, and Preda doesn't stand a chance at Sorrow. There's nothing they can do to help themselves. So this fight is over just like that. Kasune Rush is already back into the mix, so Void has to take another reset, and things are unfortunately just not looking good right now.
Yeah, I mean, Eco's been on a bit of a tear, but if we really think about it, the whole team of Missarna has been really strong and really confident right now, with a lot of really good missiles from Battle Gnome, and we're looking for another one, maybe. I think they're looking to go again, but there goes Void first. Void managed to get it going first, but Xander gets a pick at the Kaloma, and they get a trade out.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't hate that trade, but again, Preda being down is devastating early. You can see right now, eventually going to slice it, but Battle Gnome just stays immediately away from them. Zane is super low, but isn't going to get finished, but Sander instead will. And now, this isn't even a question of Void being able to, finish with time. This is a question of them being able to finish at all.
Yeah, I mean, this third point is looking super difficult to push for Void. They're staying on that Ana. Definitely the point to do it, but I feel like they need to change something up and quick before they run out of time here.
Yeah, 100%. And now, eventually got the setup with an engagement. They are going to have the cage fight as well as the traded bolo shots, but if you're Void, you have to go quick. If you're Ultrac, and you know there's so much coming around the corner, the hard engagement eventually goes directly back. Got to get the overtime touch in there right now, so Void has an opportunity. But again, Preda just can't do anything. No support standing by. Spike just has to use his cage fight. Packo has to throw out the ult. Just hope they find literally anything right here. You see behind, Spike needs to get rid of the person who dropped into the cage fight. They dropped the cage fight, not knowing that was in there. They still get finished off, but at this point, Spike can't do it alone. Void's going to lose this one. Missarna Bastun is going to move up to match point already, and my goodness, they just cannot be stopped. They get pushed back, but they just become an absolute just brick wall when they need to.
The pace is just like uncontrollable right now. I feel like the confidence from that first match has just kept on escalating. We saw a lot of the time that the aggression will just keep on getting matched with aggression, and I wouldn't even know what to do if I was Void in this situation. They just keep on going, and it's really difficult to deal with that a lot of the time.
Yeah, it really is in the situation right here. I mean, we'll talk about ban stuff here in a minute, but I'll be honest, if there's something that I wanted to get rid of that I thought would give me the best chance of winning, if we went to another map where Malcolm was viable, get rid of the Kiriko. Kill it with fire, because you can no longer cleanse the nade anymore. You're able to engage on that. Plus, I think you learn from the scenario to put Preda on the high ground as much as humanly possible. And King's Row, third point, isn't the best situation for that. I fully realize that, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. But Beza, talking more about how that map went down, I think this is a bit of a better look that we saw here for Void. I think they definitely looked a lot more competitive here, but it felt like when they finally got something going, either they ended up extending a little too far out, or it became a scenario where Zane just went in with every engagement. The moment that you saw even just the peak that Spike was a little too far ahead, they jumped back, were able to get rid of Preda on pretty much every single engagement.
Yeah, and I mean, as you can see, the Kiriko's value as well for a lot of those engages when they were matching that Blizzard on the Mei, they just kept on getting like declined even. The Suzu just stopping every response that they had. The Juno speedering just engaging with such like pace that they can't even react to it. So I feel like it's going to be difficult to find an answer because, as you mentioned, the Kiriko ban, very strong ban, a very strong hero with the Mauga as well, and it kind of negates a lot of the responses. But the Mauga is still, I feel like they're still very strong and very confident on that Mauga. So I feel like if I'm Void right now, I'm terrified of that Mauga. As much as Ego might be scary on every hero, I feel like that Mauga definitely had to go.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of really good bans. I talked about that Kiriko, but honestly, just getting rid of the source with Amalga, it could be a good solution as well. I think it depends what map you want to go to here, because I gotta remember specifically, but I believe it's Escort next, if I'm not mistaken. Which, if that is the case, it's a lot of maps that are going to have a lot of high grounds. This is more of a dive style. You could force Malga, you could, but it wouldn't work as well on a King's Row, like on an Oasis. So I personally would be in a scenario where if I think I can turn this around, if I can make something happen on dive, I might try to hold off on the Malga, hold off on the Kiriko bans to the best of my ability, and just try to see if you can win this third map right here by strictly enforcing that dive and forcing it to a style that we haven't quite seen yet from Asar.
Yeah, and I mean the map choices for Escort, Circuit Royale, Havana, Rialto, and Route 66. I wouldn't even say many of them. Maybe Rialto is okay for Maga, but Route 66 is strong for Hazard, for example, which seems to be Spike's maybe favorite hero. So maybe we see a Route 66 with a Mauga ban, or maybe we see even a Rialto Sigma, to be honest. You really do have a lot of choices, or a Havana Sigma as well. You do have a lot of choices to just deal with that Mauga just on map pick alone and not even having to ban it. And then you get to avoid the Kiriko ban, which definitely seems to be a bit of a thorn even for
Oh,
Void and Circuit.
this is really interesting. I don't think this is the worst pick of the four, but it is a scenario where that Mauga I think is still viable. I'm not gonna lie. There's definitely long sight lines and it can be hard to deal with here. But when we're talking about that second point where there is a lot of twists and turns, a lot of different ways to work around the terrain, I think the Mauga could still get a lot of care here. But now that comes into the scenario of how one, you want to build your comp now if you're Void, because it's probably going to play differently than anything you've done so far. And two, whether or not you initiate that Mauga or Kiriko ban here. Because if you're going to do one of the two, I imagine it would probably be the Mauga just to force maybe a Ramatra mirror, maybe even a Sigma mirror, anything to get them away from what has been their bread and butter the past 35 minutes of our life.
Yeah, and I mean, many of the escort options weren't even that strong for Maga, but I feel like Void kind of might have made a bit of a mistake picking Circuit, because third point, obviously, one of the more switch up maps for escort, for Circuit Royale specifically, with first and second being very favored towards that Sigma, for example. But map three being map point three, sorry, the third point being very much favored towards like a divier playstyle where Maga might even just shine a bit too much for Void's taste, even. But maybe they might have an answer to that. Maybe they might be ready for that.
Yeah, I'm curious what ends up being in a scenario like this and what route you want to try to go down. But we're finding that out as Void are going to get rid of the Chuno. We'll talk about that more in a moment. Masar, getting rid of the Freya, I think makes sense. I think you were getting away with a fair amount of it over on Void, so I don't think that's a bad choice whatsoever. But the Juno is very interesting, and it goes down the initial route that I suggested, which was holding off on the Kiriko and Mauga, because at this point, you might as well try to see if you can beat it without it. Juno still is a character that can get a lot of value. The Orbit Array has been a pain in the neck for them constantly. And now you can kind of focus down on the routes of things like that Kiriko, maybe even like the Lucio. Maybe you're able to go down the Ana route again, because if you have learned from history, you should be able to put Preda in a lot of places where they can simply stay away from the Mauga and get a lot more effectiveness than they originally were able to.
Yeah, and I mean, this is definitely the map to do it with Juno, arguably being one of the heroes that you kind of need to play if you want to play those speedier comps on circuit. It's difficult to play that Lucio to keep getting that value for the first and second point. And if you're only playing a comp that's good on the third point, which would be the Lucio, you're kind of losing out a little bit. That's even assuming you even get there in the first place, you know. So I feel like Juno ban was definitely the safest for them here.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's up going down, because obviously, if you want to still force everything that you had before, for the most part, you very much could if you're Missarna. But Void doing this clearly has an idea of what they want to be able to do to shut this down. And I think a lot of that is going to come true when we look at first and third specifically. Because second, I think that's where the Mauga comp is probably going to be the strongest out of the three. I think third, there's way too many high grounds to work around. I think with first, you will probably run something that you can hold on the corner pretty effectively, whether that is going to be something like a Sigma, maybe it's a Ramatra. We don't quite know at this point. And it's really a coin flip on what the tank situation is going to be like for Void. But it is a situation where we just truly have to see. And if you are Void, you need to be able to hold as long as humanly possible on this first point, because we saw how well Mazar is at simply snowballing once they get momentum.
Yeah, and on first point as well, it's a very punishing first point. That first half, it's really difficult to get the right position there. And we see a lot of even professional teams, they just give it up straight away that first half of first point. Miss out with very strong aggression. Maybe they're looking to punish Void really early on that first point, looking to seize almost the window of opportunity to just completely skip first point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So find out momentarily as we're getting ready to head into this next and potential final map, as well as, once again, ladies and gentlemen, is a first to three. So we could see it be ending here at Circuit Royale. Curious to see what sides are going to be like. We saw initially Masar was running on the attack to get things going back on Kings Row. I could very much see it being the exact same thing here. Some teams are more comfortable running defense first. I think a majority of teams, quite honestly. But if you have a level of confidence that you think you can go and finish that map and set the goalpost very, very far back, you might as well in a situation like this. And yeah, it's going to be the exact same thing. And oh boy, Beza, what do I see here?
We see a bit of a Widow Pharah, and you know, I would have liked to have seen the Pharah in King's Row, but you know, Circuit's the second best choice here. And Far Mercy especially, with a Reinhardt Symmetra on the enemy team. This is quite the difference to what I'm used to with Sekiro.
Oh, this is gonna be very interesting. This is 2023, like London Spitfire territory. We're starting to enter right here for Missarna. So we'll see whether or not it works. I imagine they simply are going to speed out and TP top left and to see if they can do anything. But Paco honestly is going to be the major deterrent in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, the Reinhardt pick as well, it's kind of weak into the Pharah. Your shield gets spammed out a lot. Symmetra not really able to even reach the Pharah, so maybe they've just, like, counterpicked them by pure, in almost psychic nature. But the TP came out, the Reinhardt's just looking to charge the straight off high ground, and as we see, first half of first point even, already in control of Missarna.
Yeah, we see a lot of teams that kind of give up this first section with a lot of ease. You don't want to have to do it, but the last thing you want is to lose anybody in the situation and make holding this initial corner impossible. And I gotta say, Battle being gone puts a little damper on things. It's gonna be a little more difficult to hold that area, but we'll figure out that DC pretty shortly here, I hope. But I mean, Beza, I like it. You know what? I think this is at least good for the initial ability to take over this high ground, force Void out of the situation. I think the trouble is going to be pushing further because you essentially have to utilize that TP to get through because there's so much pressure, so much damage that Void should realistically be able to have on this corner to where you can't stand there very long if you're the Ryan. You just have to initiate and go for it.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you make a misstep, someone might just get booped off of the high ground and get completely separated, and they've got to rechange their entire positioning. And even with that Sim TP as well, they might just TP into the ledge and get booped off as well, so they've got to be very careful here moving forward for this stack.
Yeah, 100%. You see the Pharah is in there. Xander, though, is being taken care of early. That res is going to be impossible to really manage as they're hanging around. Spike does get a run as Immortality Field has to be implemented. They're going to be able to keep Milo alive for the time being. As even with Battle still making their way back, I mean, they're doing a lot. Pinned directly over onto Spike as they have to start running for the hills.
Zane's saying that we're not going to stop here, and the only one at threat is you right now, especially with Eco getting that pick with the Xander. A lot of the pressure's down from Void. So they're looking to just take this corner, and they're looking to take it quickly.
Yeah, 100%. But 240 still on the clock. Plenty to work with. TP over the high. Want to try to get Milo in a situation. Milo literally gets out of there at the exact moment before disaster would strike. Battle Gnome, though, has been taken down first and foremost. Spike needs a little bit of care. Unfortunately, doesn't. And you might have to give everything to get this res off, but Spike's going to go in. Wait, no, Zane goes in and gets the pin. And there's no res. There's no way that should have ever worked out, and now it's just standard. And I'm throwing the bob. I'm about to say I throw the bob, and you force everybody back, and now they're gonna barely win this game.
Very close there. That bob almost getting two, and if it got those two picks, I might have just like sealed the deal even for another minute for Void. But I mean, they're back very quickly here with that Sim TP, just letting them get that rollout right back into the fight, and they're going right back again. Battle them again, taking the right side, just like last time. It's almost like we've got deja vu right now.
Yeah, and Matrix used up high again. You see Ego hanging around the back line. He is getting damaged a lot, but still hanging around. But Missarna is going to have 5 ults ready here right now. Beat is used. TP up online, ready to go. You can see a lot happening in the backline still as Battle Gnome gonna eventually use their own amp. That is 2-3 different ultimates from Missarna, hoping to close this out, but no, they're still hanging around. Shatter onto Spike. Needs to be able to keep them alive, and Milo is just dedicated to keeping them going, and Missarna is now potentially hitting their own wall here, but Ego is still hanging around the back. Like, Ego has been back there the entire freaking time, and they're gonna pull this one back, and Missarna should be able to clean this one out and move on. At least that is if Spike doesn't have anything to say about it.
Yeah, and I mean, Spike's looking to get these value out, but Eco, again, it's like he's telling him it's not over till I say it's over. This fight has never ended until Eco's gone down, I feel. And I mean, if Zane's still alive as well, they just keep going. It seems like unless Zane and Eco are down, the fight never ends. It just keeps on going, and it keeps on going in Missarna's favor as well, with a big swap here from the Reinhardt onto the Hazard. And also from the Baptiste to the Kiriko. So definitely interesting to see how this is going to change up.
Yeah, 100%. So if you're a Void, you're honestly in a decent spot, all things considered, but you gotta work up back to these ultimate Sander. That bob was extremely effective the first time, pretty much helped them hold on to the point for an extra minute and change. But for Ego, who has just been a machine already, is gonna force everybody back, immediately gonna get rid of that healing pylon. Hasn't found the pick, though. I don't know how you get up on that, but, you know, I'll talk about that tech later on as Bob is implemented. Xander ends up going down directly after the fact that Bob has to find some level of effectiveness, and guess what? It is causing Missarna to kind of have to hold off and bide their time a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, they gotta respect the Bob, and even though Ego got the pick, they got traded out back for it, so a lot of their damage is down right now, and a lot of that backline pressure is down, so we've gone to a little bit of a stagnation here in the fight. Of course, that goes in Void's favor, being on the defense, but the beat comes out, and the beat engaged, and it gets matched by the spin and the window.
Ooh, and Zane gets cleansed out, has the block as well, so nothing really going their way. As once again, Void doing a really good job of kind of holding out of this corner. They're going to have the barrage ready to go here, but for Peko, it's tough to really pull it out in this scenario because you have to wait for the right place at the right time. Because if you try to implement, you're going to get deleted on the spot as Pilot forced back into the room. Spike finishes off, and even with Kitsune Rush, Void has all the tools to hold on to this corner. Spike just has to stay alive.
Yeah, that Kitsune, it might have been a bit too little too late, but it's going to have to force the barrage anyways, and the Sun as well. That's a big overreaction, I feel, but, you know, it wins the fight, and, you know, at this point, winning that fight, restabilizing matters a lot for Void. Of course, a 2-for-1 trade with the Kitsune, almost getting stopped by Spike just single-handedly, and by a big pick as well from, big damage as well from Peko. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a strong spot for Missarna with 2 ults up, and Void looking to find an answer here. And they found the answer straight away, as I said that.
Yeah, you're just predicting the future once again here, as this fight doesn't really exist. They're clearing it once again, and now this is the first time I think I've really seen Missarna be vulnerable in any sort of fashion right now. And Void, if they can manage this Bob correctly, they could have an amazing ultimate cycle for the final fight.
Missarna's trying to replicate the success of the Mercy for a little bit, but Void, they stopped off of their Mercy long since, so we'll have to see how that goes. The Bob got built up for Xander in that fight. Spike almost onto the pull, and Predator and Peko both coming from that ult as well. It's like a very strong position for Void if they just live a little bit longer with a big Bob there.
Oh, downpour. It almost catches onto a ton of people. It doesn't quite. Peko, though, is dead as Bob is activated. It's in a bit of a weird situation. He's blocked out, as it's literally a Bob v Bob right now, and eventually both going to fall over. But now Predator ult ready to go around the corner. Spike is getting super close as well. Needs to be able to stay alive. It's already using that to be able to hold them out a little bit longer, but eventually going to force their way in. Spike needs to live long enough to get this Terror Surge online, as someone has got to eventually force a bit of a touch here, because so far, no one has actually touched, but now there it is. Overtime has been committed. Terror Surge pulled in. There's quite a few bodies pulled in. You need to be able to get rid of the Immortality Field. Everybody's sitting super low. Best of they got to finish them off, but everybody is stabilizing.
They're just about living long enough for Spike gets a pick, but Ego's looking to get those trades, but he's going to go down. He goes down.
Yeah, but the res gets stopped on top of that, and it's literally just him to try to pull it back. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen, and Void having signs of life as they're going to stop them just before the second checkpoint. So, you know what? I love to see it.
I definitely love to see it right now. Void's looking to restabilize, and, you know, I said Circuit was pretty comfortable for Margaret, but I don't think Missarna even wanted to try it once. They've been very set on that Hazard, on that Reinhardt, and, you know, it's working out really well for Void right now. Of course, the Juno ban maybe have been like the decider for this map as well. Maybe it's making them a bit too scared to go on that Margaret comp.
Yeah, 100%. But for Void, this is certainly the best look I think we've seen throughout the entire series so far. And now we got to address the crux that they've been dealing with, is being able to finish things out. They've had some really good situations, but they've had this inability to close the book fully. So now this is the opportunity to break that curse, the opportunity to make something happen. And this is the best scenario right here. But for Missarna, they're playing things a little more interesting. They are pretty much entirely away from their previous style and are attempting to go with a pharmacy of their own. Battle Gnome is still over on this Baptiste, as Zane now over on the Sigma.
Yeah, and as we said earlier on the start of this map, Sigma very strong in a lot of these escort maps, and maybe we'll see this Sigma pharmacy getting a lot of value. Ego, though, no longer on the Venture, no longer on the Genji or the Tracer. They're on Ashe this time.
Yeah, 100%. But either way, Void gonna go out the gates right here and don't have the benefit of speed or a TP like Missarna ended up having in their scenario. So Void had to do this the old-fashioned way through pure attrition and aim, as Missarna doesn't really have anybody that can really hold on to this opening space here. You can already see they're just more than happy to keep backing up slowly but surely.
Yeah, they're looking to play a little bit slower this time, which honestly is quite the change of what we've seen a lot of this Missarna doing. Spike looking to take the high ground though, and I think it's going to be very successful with Zane going very low. A lot of cooldowns burn here, a lot of advantage for Void, and this Pharah spam is looking lethal for Missarna right now.
Yeah, 100% is. So, for Missarna, already gonna have to use that immortality field as Void seems to be really getting something going in this situation, but now comes the really difficult part, and that's breaking through this final quarter. Getting rid of Zane would definitely help them break through pretty easily, but Ego actually is going down first and foremost, someone who's been far more quiet throughout this map, and without them, you gotta whether or not you want to invest, but guess what? You don't get to invest. You get deleted, and Rez does not come through second time in a row that it's been stopped, as Void is gonna have like 515 on the point, and they only have to go 81 meters to finish this.
Void are looking to command this attack right now. Even without that speed, they are still on a charge. They're absolutely looking to seal this map out and continue their little streak. Maybe even get a reverse sweep here from Missarna's first two strong maps.
100%. Either way, Missarna just have a lot coming around the corner, but to be fair, Void is about to have all 5 as well, so you have to be careful because this is a 2-fight situation more than likely. So you have to be careful with what you want to use here, and honestly, wouldn't surprise if they try to use either the Bob or the kind of Sun pretty aggressively, but Ego, over on that Soj, has been able to get with a lot. Spike is looking to pull some bodies in. He's going to get everybody in a weird scenario. They're actually investing a lot here. Spike ends up getting rid of one, but they need to find another. As Suwalt's coming out, needs they need to finish this tackle, finds the direct shot, and now you got to try to find the res if Nian right now, and eventually you're going to get it, as Void's got to reset real quick.
Yeah, and I mean, Void had a really strong start to that fight. They got the good 2 trades for the ultimate, and they almost looked to be recontesting that fight even. But Missarna managed to get the res off, managed to get the picks off, and get the trades off where they mattered with a very strong window in Barrage there, just forcing Voids to back up a little bit. And when they didn't back up, it almost bit them.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely could in the scenario. But if this is Void does have the tools needed, they're going to go with the Bob very early. That's an excellent play right there for Zane to be able to stop the Bob right in its place. But now 2.5 meters left to go. Paco does get taken care of, so that is going to put a damper on things momentarily, as no barrage is going to be sent in place. As Ego eventually gets taken care of, perhaps a little too far forward. The train starting to go back and forth, but Zane needs to be able to hold on, try to get this Terror Surge going as Pilot brought back to life, as Void once again can't quite close it out.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of value from these reses as well. Ego managed to get the pick, but maybe even overheating a little bit after that pick. Kept trying to go in, but now we're just having to hope that Ego even gets back in time for this fight. Did a big window to stall it out. But no immortality though for Missarna, and it's an immortality trade, as I said it.
There it is. But, you know, I don't hate it. At the end of the day, you buy more time, and that's what you need to do. You need to kill as much time as humanly possible. You don't want a super long war of attrition when you're going to scenario where, again, Panther dies first in the situation. So again, they are without their barrage. Spike's in a weird scenario where they have to kind of hang around, and eventually going to invest a Terror Surge, and you saw it right there. They simply kind of let it happen. No mortality field was even there. They realized we just need to get this fight done and over with, because with that, it was lost.
They might not have even had it either, because that was quite a quick fight there from the immortality trade. But, you know, either way, definitely the right play to not lamp there, right? Just trying to get this trade, just trying to get as many fights as they can, because right now, one fight means the whole map is over for Missarna, and Void going to go 2-1 if they get this fight, but it's all going to come down to this next 2 minutes.
Yeah, and by the way, that cart is still rolling back. It's nothing significant, it's still 1-fight territory, but if that thing kept going back, as shield currently there for Sane, is eventually going to see Spike start engaging. Xander gets taken down, and again, Ego, I think for the 3rd or 4th fight in a row, has found an opening pick that has just made Void have to stop immediately in their tracks.
Ego almost taking it personal that he was being a bit quiet for the first half of this match, so, you know, definitely looking to pick it back up even, with 2 commanding picks in the last 2 fights. And as you said, it's rolling back quite far. We're almost into 2-fight territory, just giving maybe 30 more seconds of no touch, and it's not looking great for Void right now. They need to get this 1 fight right now when it counts.
Yeah, this would be devastating if they got stopped right here and now. So everyone is kind of just having to hide inside. Spike gets separated from everyone. and gets deleted, and that's going to kill another 20 seconds. But now Void has all 5 ults going in. It's the same situation we had like 3 minutes ago. And this time, they get the chance to do it right.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that was the plan all along, to charge up those 5 volts, just get that big commanding win and get it whilst the point's still close enough. But I'm looking at the top of the screen, and it's not looking great. It's kind of pushing the limit on this one fight here, so they've got to go quick, and they've got to go now, and they're looking to go now. The Paco on the right side here, look to get an angle for this barrage as well. We'll see.
Yeah, you got to be careful not to give up too much ground, or else you're going to leave all that room for these ults being thrown in. Everyone, weird scenario as 2 ults can be thrown in. 3 at the end of the day, and I mean, Missarna, they're going to hold on here, but now this is going to be a 3-to-1 ult situation, and yeah, and it's just, she's going to have to be the thing for her team. Like, and they're going to push up too.
Yeah, I think they saw those 2 ults come out. They know that if they just hold this fight for a little bit longer, they get another touch. I think they also, my loot also, Sun got cancelled maybe, because I didn't see it at all. Ecomox got the pick as well. That might just be the pick to slow them down.
Yeah, and now, and now you got Spike slows the touch. Spike has to run all the way up there. They have the dash, and guess what? They don't have the spin because they have the shield, so they're gonna try to make the touch, and they don't get there. Void.
Predator was so close to that touch, so close. And honestly, if they have the spin, I think they actually get the touch there.
They do.
So, you know, we're seeing the consequences of this perk choice. But that was so close for Void.
This is a public service announcement. Everybody out there, always keep the spin. Do not pick the shield. This is your this is your PSA right here and now.
You know, I think Circuit was the one map to try it though, but it just didn't work for them. So, you know, maybe even if it was the one map, it wasn't the map that counted.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate way to have to go down that scenario, because Void again was within one fight for like 3.5 minutes. They had all the ults. And while it was a risky choice for Missarna to go in as aggressive as they did that last fight, I think it was the perfect choice right there, because they, in that situation, dedicated to, hey, we want nobody to be able to touch this because you don't have anybody fast. You don't have the spin on the Orisa anymore. If you hard press, they have to stop and fight you, because if you don't stop and fight, they're just going to kill you along the way anyway. So you are forced to engage.
Yeah, and I mean, if they managed to even get that touch, they might have still won the fight. There was a lot of good value trades there for Void, but again, you just get punished by that lack of mobility, by that lack of control. And I think Ego's pick onto Paco earlier in that fight on that far might have just been the deciding fight. Might have just been the decider for that map there. Which, I mean, you hate to see it with how close they got there. I was really cheering on for them.
Yeah, an unfortunate scenario at the end of the day. But again, Void looked stronger as things kept going on and on. They had a fantastic hold. I think their attack for the most part was really good. Unfortunately, like we both kind of kept saying, it was a scenario where they kept getting closer and closer and closer, but they can never properly finish out in that situation. But the fact is, from seeing that, is they have the ability to learn, the ability to adjust, and I think make the correct bans as well. Because I think Juno probably was the correct ban, all things considered. It stopped a lot of what you're able to do with the Malga. It forced a whole different shift and made it closer than it has been throughout the entirety of the day. So I hope we get to see more from this Void team down the line. But Beza, before we get things closed out of here, I have a couple of ideas for MVP, but I will personally want your opinion, because I think there was quite a few standouts here today.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like the easy answer is to go for Ego. He's had a lot of very strong fights there, but the reality is it was a team game there. It was a very strong team effort for everyone involved. I think when it boils down to it, though, Ego really did solidify a lot of those fights when it mattered. Did seize a lot of missed opportunities, maybe for a lot of Void's missed opportunities, and almost capitalized on a lot of minor mistakes that just kept escalating for Void. So if I had to pick someone, even though it might be a bit of an easy answer, a bit of a simple one, I feel like it has to be Ego for me.
Yeah, just because it's the easy answer doesn't mean it's the wrong answer. And I 100% agree in the situation right here. I think, again, like you said, everybody really did their job correctly. I think saying throughout that entire thing was an absolute force bolt on the Malga, and eventually having to swap around, getting to Circuit Royale. But someone who was consistent throughout all 3 games, 100% Ego, 100% deserved, and hopefully get to see more from him later down the line of the tournament. But Beza, well, I wish we could kind of keep doing games because, I would love to sit here all day casting EU, having myself a good old time. Unfortunately, the day does have to come to an end. So, thank you all for joining us here today for the Crown Cup. Still a lot more in terms of competition, a few more weeks of that regular season before we go and break down those playoffs. So, with that being said, thank you all for joining us. Hopefully, you join us. I messed up the outro. That sucks. I hope you join us later down the line for some more Crown Cup action. See you later.